you know what? I'm going to do another video. I know there's a lot of new subscribers to this channel, but also a lot of interest in Dragon Ball at the moment. So let's just talk about what I love about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Now, a lot of you know I'm a massive fan of Dragon Ball Z. I have something pretty cool over here. Let me just grab it out of its box because it's sitting in a box at the moment. It's an actual, like, Dragon Ball. It's like actual size to actual dimensions. It's an actual 4-star Dragon Ball. Now, this is one of my most prized possessions, if I can get it in that light. And yeah, it's really cool. But what I love about Dragon Ball is that it's got this vibe to it. It's got a vibe of, you know, very much fight feel. It's based a lot on Jackie Chan, I believe. I think Goku is based on Jackie Chan. I don't know what Akira Toriyama cited as referencing for what he based Goku on, but I think Jackie Chan in Drunken Master was what he based it on, or he saw that movie and then he based Goku on that. But nonetheless, Goku is one of the most iconic characters in all of anime. Whether you like it or not, he's one of the most iconic characters in all of anime. Talk to the hand, you know? One of the most iconic characters in all of anime. And then you have classic, iconic characters in there like Cell, you know? Let's make him point towards the camera. Cell is one of the best arcs in Dragon Ball, period. And then, you know, you have King Piccolo if you go back and watch Dragon Ball, because a lot of us grew up watching Cheez TV. But with me, in 2003, 2004, I was also watching Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball, on Toonami/Cartoon Network. It was on at 8:30 in the night. I would sit in front of the TV and watch how Dragon Ball played up before Dragon Ball Z, because I was actually interested in how did Goku come to be this. He didn't just wake up one day and decide to fight Raditz. I mean, it's a good pick-up point if you didn't want to watch Dragon Ball, but then you miss all those forming of the Z fighters. You miss all, like, how Tian and Piccolo and even Krillin and all that come to be in the Z fighters, you know? Yamcha even, you know? But I think with Dragon Ball, I just love that it's one of these fandoms that really love anime and really love how a good story is told. I think Dragon Ball is one of the first animes that had continuous story across all episodes. Now, I might be wrong on that. There might be predating ones. I don't think Astro Boy had it. I don't know if any others had it before that. But I think Dragon Ball had the first continuous story across anime. I might be wrong with that. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's still interesting to think about how we got to this point with Dragon Ball where we really start... We're eating well, essentially, you know? We're eating very well. I mean, they did announce the Galactic Patrol now. Obviously, we have the Morrow arc coming. Galactic Patrol is Morrow. And let me just show you who Morrow is. For those who don't know, that is Morrow. That's the arc we're getting now, Galactic Patrol, if I can make that focus. So that's Morrow. He has a lot in similar design to Cell. You'll see a lot of similarities to Cell. But it's still really cool that we're getting... now, it's not a one-to-one to Cell. Obviously, it's not the same person, not the same character. But the character design, it's the same as Hit. Hit had a lot in common with Cell as well. But I'm interested to know, like, as a collective fandom, we're eating well at the moment. We thought that after Akira Toriyama passing, we were not going to get much more Dragon Ball. We knew we were going to get games and they were going to keep cashing in on the IP. But in terms of canon, in terms of what it's backed by the story by, we were looking at that as like, okay, we've got maybe Morrow, we've got Granola, they could retell Broly in an animated form in anime, or it's animated, but I'm saying in anime form. They could retell Superhero in anime form, and then that's about maybe 100 episodes, maybe 150 episodes there in terms of continuation. I also note that the game is coming. I think there's a game that's set in year 1000. That's pretty cool to be coming. Obviously, year 1000 is the same year that Dragon Ball Online was set, so we could be seeing some more Toriyama canon coming from that, about what he developed for that game back in the 2000s. But it's still interesting because we are getting more Dragon Ball. And as Dragon Ball fans, for the longest time, a lot of us fell out of love with Dragon Ball. A lot of us, it's that stale from, like, basically the end of GT, and nothing was on TV for about, what, 10, 15 years after GT ended in the Western world, or, like, stopped airing in the Western world. Now, obviously, it's always been there. You had Kai, you had all these other things, but that's just retelling of Dragon Ball Z, you know? So a lot of us were like, okay, new anime wasn't really a thing until Dragon Ball Super came along. And when we got Dragon Ball Super, it was phenomenal. It brought a lot of people back to the fandom. It brought me back to the fandom. I was like, yeah, finally, new Dragon Ball. Like, this is cool. And then you watch it, and then you watch Beerus, and then you watch Frieza, which obviously, for me, Frieza was the arc that really got me into Dragon Ball Z. I started watching Cheez TV because I switched over from Agro's Cartoon Connection, because Aggro had Sailor Moon. And a lot of us remember in 95 as kids watching Sailor Moon on Aggro's Cartoon Connection. Yeah, yeah. But, a lot of us remember watching Aggro and watching Sailor Moon, shows like that, Gargoyles, and all these other shows. Is it Gargoyles? Was it Gargoyles? I'm positive that there was a show called Gargoyles. And then there was all these other shows on there, but for me, it was Sailor Moon. It was like, yeah, Sailor Moon, because it looked like nothing else on TV. And back in those days, you had other shows on TV like Power Rangers. A lot of this Japan invasion of, well, not Japan invasion, that sounds awful, but like Japanese television and canon, or not canon, but like Japanese material coming into the Western world. Now, Power Rangers was obviously a recut of a Japanese show, and that was repackaged for the Power Rangers. So a lot of the fighting scenes were for a Japanese show. But at the time, Sailor Moon was big. Like Sailor Moon was like nothing else on TV. And then Pokemon came along. Pokemon changed anime to the point where even the most hardcore fans, I'm not going to get Pokemon out, but even the most hardcore against Pokemon, against anime from Japan or anything were like, I know the rest of that stuff's all anime and stuff. I don't like all that. But this one over here is massive. And then you had the whole childish thing of like Pokemon trading card game where that was massive in the schoolyards. And at the same time, Cheez TV was really picking up traction. It was really picking up market share from Channel 7, which had Aggro's Cartoon Connection. It was really stealing viewers from Aggro. And after about a few years, a lot of kids switched over for Pokemon because Pokemon was the biggest thing in the 90s. It was one of the biggest shows of that period of like 97, 98. I think the first episode I remember watching was someone brought a tape to school one day. I remember it was pouring down rain and they were just like, oh, class, we're just cancelling thing and we're just going to sit around the TV and watch TV. And I remember it was the episode of like the ship. I remember there was a ship and there was like, I think it might have been the Magikarp one where James wins the Magikarp or something. But I know that this was like the episode that I first watched of Pokemon. And then it woke me and I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch Cheez TV and watch Pokemon and I'll switch over from Channel 7 and watch this. And by this point, I think Dragon Ball Z might have been airing by this point, but I wasn't really watching Dragon Ball Z. I mean, I really got into Dragon Ball Z around the late Frieza arc, around the time when Goku and Frieza were having their battle. So I wasn't watching right from the start of the Frieza arc. I was watching from the fight between Goku and Frieza. And I remember watching Goku as a Super Saiyan, like turn Super Saiyan, and I was like, this is cool. I didn't have much of the context because you couldn't just run out and watch all the back catalogue on a streaming service back then. So I was just like, okay, pick it up from here and watch the next episode, watch the next episode. And it was cool to watch. Like you had that original voice actors dub as well, where I think Chris Sabat's tries to sound like the original voice actor, Drummond or whatever. I think he tries to sound a bit much like that with his Vegeta portrayal. They changed that later on, but still having that little thing of like, okay, I can go back and watch the Ocean dub when it's out on DVD. I can go back and watch it when it's on VHS. That's pretty cool as well. I know this is a bit of a rant, and I know you guys are kind of like, what is this going towards? But this is just how I got into Dragon Ball. And then you go, the end of that ends, and then I think they have a little brief break in between where Frieza finishes and then picking it up from the Saiyan Saga, or like not Saiyan Saga, what's it called? The Android Saga. So I think there's a brief break in between there, but then I was watching all of the Cell stuff. And then Cell is one of the best characters in all of Dragon Ball. I personally prefer Frieza, but I know a lot of people prefer Cell. With Cell, it was kind of interesting because I was experiencing Dragon Ball, a complete Dragon Ball arc from beginning to end. So that was my real getting to of like, oh, Trunks, the future, kid from the future, Vegeta's son, like all this other stuff. Like, you start getting into the arc and like what Dragon Ball world is about. And then obviously there you're supported by videotapes at the video store. You rent them and watch them and fill in the blanks of what you missed. Obviously, I went back and watched Captain Ginyu at that time. I had other things there where I was getting back into like the early Freezer arc. I didn't really go back to watch the Ocean dub until later on, I did watch the Ocean dub, but it was just a bit later on. I think I experienced that in like 2002 or whatever. I went back and watched that. And then 2003, 4, I went back and watched Toonami and watched the original Dragon Ball. But what I'm saying is like, over time, my love for Dragon Ball has always been there. Obviously, when we all become teenagers, we all start saying, oh, childish stuff, we'll just leave that behind. I did the same thing. I was like, I mean, Dragon Ball's there, it's cool and all, but like, there's no new material, so like, maybe time to just hang that up and like, let's just leave it where it is. But for me, it was like, oh, I still play the games and that. Still want to play like Tenshin and oh, what's it called? What's it called? I forget the name of the thing. I still want to play. I forget the name of the game. Sorry, but you're all going to be screaming at the screen. Sorry, if you know what it is, put it in the comments. But I remember playing those games and those big fighting games when they were at the time. I remember Ultimate Battle 22 or something, and you could unlock an extra character by doing a special cheat in the menu. These were little cool things of Dragon Ball at the time, and a lot of us take for granted like that period where Dragon Ball was in a hiatus. Obviously, from the time GT was off air. Now I did watch GT as well, but for me with GT, I was just kind of like, meh. All right, it's something to watch, I guess, but like, meh, don't care. And by that time, a lot of people had moved on to Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all these other shows because GT was just kind of like meh, you know, it wasn't Z, it wasn't Boo Arc and that, and we all knew that it wasn't really like proper canon, so we're just like meh, okay, it's something to watch at least, it's good to watch, but it's not proper of like, it's not Dragon Ball Z. So a lot of us moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh! And started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At this time. We started playing things like even Beyblade. Obviously, Beyblade was a big thing. Digimon came along at the same time as well. I think Digimon was like 99, 2000, so they had like that. Cheez TV had a really good lineup when you think about it. And yeah, this is how my love for Dragon Ball came about. Like, this is how I fell in love with Dragon Ball. And why I think that we're eating well as fans right now. Yes, we all thought that when Toriyama passed away and left us, that we weren't going to get much more in terms of Dragon Ball. We knew we were going to get like the Moro arc, we knew we were going to get Granola, we knew we were going to get some things, but we didn't know if it was going to be this year, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. We didn't know when it was going to come. But now they've announced that it's probably going to come all in the span of like the next couple of years, which is cool because I love the movies, but I want to see an animated version. I want something that I can tune into weekly and be like, speculate on it. You know, I want to be able to speculate on, oh, what's going to happen next. The good thing about Jiren is the fandom was speculating each week about what's going to happen next. Like, is Jiren overpowered? Is Goku going to unlock Ultra Instinct? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? Like, the fandom were like literally celebrating and figuring out what's going to happen next. And then I think there were even public screenings of Dragon Ball in cinemas in Brazil and all that, in South America. So I know the fandom was really taking a hold of Dragon Ball at the time, and it was unofficial screenings. I don't think they ever had permission to screen those, but still. I think they should do the same thing as they did with Stranger Things, where they put it in cinemas, put the final episodes in cinemas, and put like these big things, make it official event. Dimer had a bit of that, like Dimer had a bit of feature length and like, not feature length, but like episodes that you could really get into and like, you could watch the last few episodes of Dimer and have it as like a standalone arc of like, okay, I want to watch it through from here to there without interruptions and just view it as a movie. You can do that with Dimer, essentially, if you want to. I think that would be cool to have like a feature-length version of like the last few, like the Granola arc from the start of the fight to the end of the fight. That would be cool to have as a standalone movie in cinemas. But I don't think they're going to do it. I think I want to see it as anime. Have it as the anime version, then you can chop that down for a movie version with new animation in there if you want. But then we're getting reanimated, like Broly is now, well, not Broly, I keep saying Broly. Broly's just one of my favorite characters. But like, we have a reanimated Beerus arc coming for the anime. It's called, they're not calling it Kai, but it's basically Kai. But still, this is part of the fun of like being a Dragon Ball fan in 2026. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it. I did another video recently, so if you want to go watch that video, I'm sure you can find it in my recent videos. Or if you want to go back even further and watch me talking about Dragon Ball Z on physical media, you can watch this one over here and figure out how wrong they get Dragon Ball. Well, Dragon Ball Z on physical media. Go watch that. Go watch anything. Peace. I'll be back soon.